Your weaknesses are going to be your business's weaknesses. Yeah. And so it's important, rather than being good at everything because you can't, hiring for those weaknesses. When I met my husband, he didn't speak English. I didn't speak Japanese. Like, we just kind of figured it out as we went. How you spend your day is how you spend your life.
Welcome to the Art of ADHD. This is a show about people whose brains work a little different and they make the most of it. Today's guest is Rochelle Managua. Rochelle Managua is a mother, a wife, an entrepreneur. She owns MotherLove Ferments, a company that brews kombucha and water-kefir, sells it all over Western Canada. In today's episode, we discuss boundaries and the challenges of taking on too many projects. We explore designing a life that nurtures your strengths. And we explore the adventure of having a family and the role they play in managing ADHD. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Welcome to the show, Rochelle. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, Liam.
Let's start off by just talking about like your business. Like, I want to introduce people to what you do. I think a lot of people with ADHD probably made some potions in their kitchen as a child.
Definitely.
You've made a career out of this.
Absolutely.
What do you do?
I make kombucha. I definitely made a lot of mud potions in my yard. So that was probably the inception of the business. But yeah, I've made kombucha for the last 9 years as a business, but I've been making it for even longer.
Yeah.
Just at home doing like fall fermentation where I'd ferment kombucha and kefir and kimchi and just experimenting with a lot of different types of fermentation that eventually bubbled into a career when I was on mat leave.
Wow. So kombucha, like, you know, I'm like maybe weird and rootsy enough that I know a lot of, like, it's growing in popularity for sure. But I'm sure a lot of people don't really know what it is still. What could you tell us what kombucha is?
Well, kombucha's a fermented tea. So it starts out with a SCOBY. The brand's called MotherLove, and that comes from me being a mother on the start of my journey, as well as the SCOBY sometimes is referred to as a mother. Yeah. Similar to the mother in apple cider vinegar. It's like this culture, symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast that uses the sugars in the kombucha to ferment into like a probiotic tea with a lot of digestive enzymes. You gotta love cats.
Yeah.
Just making things interesting. So people drink kombucha for gut health. It has probiotics, enzymes, like any fermented food, sauerkraut, yogurt, all good for the gut. And then water-kefir is another thing we make, which is like a fizzy probiotic water.
Yeah. Cool. I remember when I first tried kombucha, or like, I was surprised and interested that you could make a fizzy drink at home without like adding carbonation. I always thought like the magic of carbonation in beverages was like inserted by machines, but it's like, it's a natural
It's naturally occurring. You definitely can add fizz. Well, kombucha's fascinating because it's been around for thousands of years. Like most ferments, most cultures have a ferment. Like you have miso in Asia and kimchi in Korea and sauerkraut in Southeast Asia. But in the maybe about 20-ish years ago, GT Dave popularized kombucha in California. It's like the kombucha everyone's drank if they've drank kombucha. Yeah. The one with the like mandala in Costco. And he kind of popularized the idea for everyone else to make a company with kombucha.
Yeah.
Ferments.
Wow. So like you talked about gut health. Mm-hmm. Has that been important to you? Like, have you noticed any, like, since a lot of ADHD does seem to be connected to a variety of things, has your gut health been impacted in a way that has mattered? Like,
that's a tricky one because I think I've done ferments for so long and I drink so much kombucha and I eat so many fermented foods. I think it's just normal for me.
Yeah.
But having good digestion, I mean, is really important. And that's why I started out. Like, I've always been an athlete and fueling my body has been really important to have like the energy I need. So I think making kombucha and starting a kombucha company was birthed out of wanting to find good ways to fuel my body. Like if you drink a Coke and eat like the Western diet, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to have energy to do all the things you want. So I think I was always looking for things that made me feel good and had the energy to do what I wanted. As someone who likes to have a lot of projects, it's really important to make sure that you have the energy to do all those. Yeah. And eating live foods is definitely one aspect of it.
Yeah. So that energy, that's a huge part of this. Like, I definitely find like if I eat garbage, my brain works kind of like that.
Totally.
So I don't know. It's cool that you have this awareness. Like, where do you think that comes from? That you're like aware that what you eat, because a lot of people with ADHD also eat junk because in the moment it feels pretty good. Like a Dorito feels pretty good for the first couple
the
minutes.
dopamine hits.
Yeah, like so how do you like tune into the deeper good feelings of like a healthy food?
Oh, I think that just comes from, I think as having such a big background in athletics, wanting, like understanding that fuel directly impacts performance, but even just like we know that the gut impacts our mental health as well.
Yeah.
And so we've got this gut-brain connection. So if our gut's functioning well, that helps our brain. And I know with especially fast-brained people, that's probably even more sensitive. Like whether you're taking medication or using food or like herbal supplements, I think that makes a difference. I don't know. What have you found?
Yeah, like I feel like one of the best experiences I ever had was I went to a Vipassana meditation retreat, and it teaches you to like scan your body, be aware of what's going on in your body. And I'm sure from this 10-day silent retreat, I got to be really aware of the workings of my gut.
Yeah.
And so since then, like if I eat something bad, like it's a double-edged sword. You know, I'm more sensitive to it. And so that sucks a little bit, but I'm also more, it helps guide me towards eating better because like, yeah, you notice the peaks and the valleys that come as a consequence of certain foods.
Absolutely.
So entrepreneurship is another piece of this puzzle.
Yeah.
That like a lot of, like there's I think Ned Hallowell, one of the foremost ADHD researchers, he refers to ADHD as the entrepreneurship trait.
Absolutely.
Like is MotherLove your first entrepreneurship foray, or what does your journey in entrepreneurship look like?
This is the first company that I've started,
Yeah.
but I definitely am someone who will take on projects. And I think what comes with like the ADHD, that I was diagnosed very much later in life.
Yeah.
So I just assumed my brain was my brain, and it's just a brain that I lived with that was just like kind of adverse to risk. I have a really high risk tolerance. I like to take on big projects, do big things, do a lot of things at the same time. So that's always been kind of how I functioned. Like been really good at school, can manage a busy work schedule because I was an athlete in university, and you don't have time to do all the things or read and train and go to competitions. So I just stopped. I didn't read.
Yeah.
And I have like the type of ADHD where you can't, like, reading doesn't work. Like words, the more words there are, I can read it over and over and it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
So when I go to lectures, I can absorb the information, or I can audiobook. So I'll just cut out things that I don't need, like reading, find a different way to process, and then just keep going. So I was from that university age, I guess, was able to manage being a really high level athlete, as well as do really well in school. And just that capacity to have a lot of things going on at the same time and do them all well was something that I've always done. And I just thought it was me as like someone with a high capacity. I also, if you follow Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 3, I'm an Aries. Like I just have a lot of like energy in my personality. And then as I got older, started a business, had kids, I started to realize like, oh, this is how my brain is. It's definitely a lot of ADHD tendencies. But I find a lot of people like with this type of brain, especially females, tend to not get diagnosed or get diagnosed later in life.
Yeah.
And then I find the conversation is, well, like, do you medicate? Like I've had this brain my whole life and I've lived with it. And it has a lot of good perks.
Yeah.
It's a little chaotic and we kind of cut some corners, but we get a lot done. So there's that kind of, I don't need to fit in a box too much. I just have to learn how to manage my brain, whether it's with food or exercise. There's like things I can do to help keep my energy more channeled rather than having it sprawl everywhere. But that's what I find kind of at this age, having this type of brain. It's more managing it, maybe with meds, maybe with not taking meds. But yeah, it's different when you're older.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you said stuck out to me was you just cut out the things that don't work for you.
Yeah.
Because like there's a lot of people who have ADHD or are described by that label well, who carry a lot of guilt and shame about not being able to do this or that. And it's really, I think, wise and fortunate for you that like you've got that other perspective, because a lot of people are like, like, oh, I can't read, woe is me, instead of, oh, I can't read, I'll do something else.
This is going to save me so much time.
yeah, like it's like obviously that there's advantages to being able to do the things other people can do, but even neurotypical people, normal people, have strengths and weaknesses. And if you can learn to focus on the strengths, because inevitably we're going to have more strengths than, or more weaknesses than strengths. No one can be good at most things. You can be good at a few things. If you can focus on the things you're good at, that's really a good way to go.
That's, I think, important for everyone.
Yeah.
Just realizing what you can do well, especially as an entrepreneur. Your business's weaknesses are going to be your weaknesses. Your weaknesses are going to be your business's weaknesses.
Yeah.
And so it's important, rather than being good at everything because you can't, hiring for those weaknesses. And whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent, you're going to want to have people on your team that can do the things you don't do really well. And that's probably the biggest learning that I've had as an entrepreneur is like, oh, I should just stay in my lane and do the things that I do. And people with fast brains tend to have a lot of ideas, like the things that grow businesses and the innovation. That's so important for thriving businesses. And it's the organization that's kind of boring to me, but that other people, it's more like in a box and you can hand off that task and other people can do it really well. So if you can find those synergies, I think that's the most important. Just recognizing what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then make a game plan. Because I think in life, it takes, like, you don't have to go by the book. There's no book. Yeah. There's no rules for the most part. Like, as long as you get to where you're going, you can take a bunch of different paths. Yeah. So that's probably been my biggest learning.
Yeah. And even like the framing you had of, a few minutes ago, you said you're risk tolerant. And like, there's a lot of people who might have a different kind of brain who would describe that as reckless or, something like that. Yeah. And it's like any gift has a curse side, but anytime you feel like you have a curse, try to shift that perspective to see it as a gift. Yeah. Because risk tolerance, especially in entrepreneurship, essential. Like, because nothing's ever going to be totally right and ready. So you got to be ready to take a leap.
And I think that's one of like the ADHD superpowers is just, I don't know about you, but just being able to be really adaptive and change course and finding like those new avenues exciting. Like when I graduated university, I graduated into like the Wall Street crash. The economy was really, really bad. No one was hiring people fresh out of university, especially marketing majors. Yeah. And I could not find a job. I graduated in the States. There weren't a lot of jobs here in Canada for entry-level marketers. So I just decided to move to Japan. Yeah. Because I was like, I could not use my degree and just find some sort of job and like be stagnant, or I can learn about international marketing or have a new experience. And so it's always that like, oh, this situation could be bad, but I can learn something new, or I can find a new way. That's kind of how I live my life. And I think it's allowed me to have like really cool experiences where I'll just move to a different country or figure something out, start a new company on mat leave rather than just going back to my old job. These kind of things seem risky, but I think have brought a lot of like richness to my life. Yeah.
Yeah, like at the end of your life, you're not going to look back and be like, "Oh, I was so comfortable." It's like risk is it's more fulfilling. And like, because I'm sure it sounds like knowing you've gotten something pretty special out of your trip to Japan, didn't you?
Yeah, I ended up getting married.
Yeah.
And I was not planning to get married. I just wanted to like travel, learn about cultures. But again, I'm just kind of like open to whatever an experience has for me. Yeah. And when I met my husband, he didn't speak English. I didn't speak Japanese. Like we just kind of figured it out as we went. Yeah. But I'm not quick to judge a situation based on like kind of the facts. Yeah. You just kind of like feel it out.
Yeah. Well, that's so beautiful and interesting too, because especially like now, like I'm lucky enough to have been with my wife for 11 years. So I dodged the current dating bullet. You dodged it. But a lot of people are online where they can compare like, oh, this person swipe, this person swipe, this person swipe. I don't know which way you swipe, but like, but they're nitpicking to try to find the perfect match. And you found someone who doesn't even didn't even speak your language.
Yeah.
How did that work? Like, 'cause that seems like a kind of ADHD leap of faith. There.
Definitely. My whole life is like it's been a little
Yeah.
chaotic, but it all works out.
Yeah.
And I think I also have that belief that like everything's just going to work out.
Yeah.
No, we met at a gym. I was rock climbing with a friend, and he was at the gym, and they were friends, and we just ended up going on some like accidental dates, and it's just kind of was fun. Like, and you kind of sense like some people are like, how do you communicate? And there's a lot of communication we do without language, like body language, and you can tell someone's like vibe as well. And we just enjoyed each other's company and eventually learned each other's languages. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. 'Cause I think people, especially in our age of like written and video communication, we do really obsess with the verbal language, and we sort of forget about the body language, about the subtleties that like a lot of a good relationship is, just spending time with someone and giggling.
Totally. Like having a good time and seeking to understand.
Yeah.
I think you either are looking to see what someone means, or you can get hung up in people's words.
Yeah.
But with most communication, I think I want to know the intent of what someone's saying and not be like, oh, I can't believe they used that word. It's like, well, what did they mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think we can cause drama or we can seek to understand. And that's like been a big part of learning to communicate with someone whose first language isn't the same as mine.
Yeah.
But it's been beautiful. And I think my relationship's a lot richer because of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the like choices and paths I've taken in life aren't like the traditional laid out plan, which I don't think would have been the best for my brain. I think the way that I've gone is more interesting, more challenging for sure. But that's definitely like lines up with my values and what I want out of life.
Yeah. That seeking to understand, I think, is one of the keys. And you pointed out well that in some ways, maybe being with someone who speaks the same language can be a disadvantage, because based on whatever happened to you growing up, you might have certain connotations with this word or that word.
Yeah.
And so someone says this and you take it personally. But if neither of you know the language, you can't have that foundation of like, oh, when they say this, they mean that. It's like, you don't know what they're saying, and you don't know and so you have to humble yourself, which
Absolutely.
I think is essential for a good relationship to work.
It's important in all relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we talked about microbial culture. Now we've got this culture. Japan seems to have quite a different relationship with mental health. I don't know if they even believe ADHD exists. Has that being tied to Japan this way impacted your relationship with your mental health, or have you thought about it?
It definitely comes up. I actually don't know if I know any Japanese people who would say they have ADHD.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's definitely less of an emphasis on mental health and like counseling and things like that. It's not really a priority. I think that's changing for the better, but Asia in general is more of a collective culture. So you do things for the good of the group. There's less of that focus on the individual, which our culture, we're very individualistic.
Yeah.
So I think that is part of it. But it hasn't really caused any problems. Like when I lived in Japan, I worked for a company, which was fine. I can work as a team and I can also work on my own. So it was just part of like learning more about myself, but I don't think it like inhibited me in any way.
Yeah. That's cool. I think there's an interesting sort of dichotomy in the collective versus individual thing. Like I really love our individualistic culture, but in my own ADHD journey, one of the things I've found is like most helpful is doing things for other people. Like a lot of people get caught up, especially in this mental health, self-actualization space of trying to always do things for yourself. And it's actually a lot of the time easier to be like, I'm going to do this because it's good for these people I care about.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to stay sober, or I'm going to work hard, or I'm going to, like, if you're like, I'm going to do it for me, well, like, it's easy to be like, well, screw me. Like,
Yeah.
But if you, it's like, there's something to working for a team that I think is actually really good for your mental health.
I think you need both.
Yeah.
For sure. It's that balance. And I think especially having an ADHD brain, for me, I have a lot of like time blindness. I don't know if you have the same.
Yeah.
Where you just think you can take on everything and without, it's like a little bit delusional. I don't know. I definitely live in that space of thinking things aren't going to take as long or I can do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so for me, especially after having kids, is realizing my boundaries. Like I can't just do it all without some cracks or some things giving.
Yeah.
So being able to have boundaries sometimes comes from other people. Like if you can't regulate yourself and be like, I'm going to do all these things and have all these projects going. Oftentimes it's other people that'll be like, oh, that's too much. Or we'll help create some boundaries.
Yeah.
If like for me, I'm not great at creating boundaries or saying no or setting limits. So I find being in a community is helpful for that.
Yeah.
To kind of regulate those.
Yeah, I definitely can relate. There's always so many projects, and I can get it done. And I think that is again one of the double-edged swords of ADHD. Like I think people worry about it, and they're never going to get anything done. But it really is the people who are delusional enough to think they can do something crazy who end up doing something crazy.
Yep.
So it's a good thing sometimes.
It's a good thing sometimes, but I think the burnout is the kind of negative side of that, or the consequence of that is because we have limits, but a lot of times I don't know what those are until I get there. I was like, oh, this will be easy, I can add this, and then you end up with so many jobs and you end up doing like great things like you said, but the hardest thing I find in my personal journey is figuring out where that balance is of like taking time to chill.
Yeah, that's
and being comfortable with quiet and nothing is challenging for a quick brain.
Oh yeah, I've been experiencing that over the last month. I've taken a break from like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X or whatever, and all this stuff. And I expected myself to be hyper productive, but instead I just sort of like am not doing things sometimes a little bit more often, and I'm learning to be okay with it, which is kind of weird. So coming back to like boundaries and avoiding burnout, like how have you found doing that? Do you have any skills or strategies for identifying things? Have you developed some?
It's a constant process. I didn't have that as much before having kids. I just kind of made time for all the things I wanted to do. But now it's a lot harder, but also helpful having kids because I have to stop work to make time for family dinners. So it kind of creates those natural rhythms of like getting the kids ready for school, taking time off on weekends to do family things. So it definitely helps with kind of structuring work, because also as an entrepreneur, you can work all the time. You don't have to work all the time, but you end up working all the time. And so that has been really helpful, just to help to slow down and be like, we need to enjoy the journey. We need to enjoy doing nothing or just doing silly things. They don't always have to have like progress or an end or like a goal. Like we can just have fun. And so that's been really helpful. But it's also made it harder because I still want to get all of this stuff done for the company and take on new projects. But I also want to be a good mom and a present partner. So this stage of my life has probably stretched me the most. Trying to be a good mom, a good partner, a friend, still get my workouts in, run a business. And it seems daunting, but I'm learning every day, like time management and how to best structure things. And it's ever changing. We're always in a different stage of life. So just the better you can know yourself and how you react and what you need, I think it helps navigate those seasons a bit better. I don't know. How's that for you? Yeah,
I think it's also a challenge, but like you identified, sometimes like these forcing functions, these like I don't have kids, I'd like kids, but it's like there's a necessary event that has to happen because of that. And then you don't need to think about it anymore. And it simplifies things intellectually. You don't need to be like, am I going to stay up another 3 hours and work on a thing? No, because you have something more important. So that's really neat. I think, it is a challenge though to keep this all balanced and to know, where one thing ends, when the thing begins. So parenting is another big adventure that like a lot of people with ADHD, like they struggle in marriages, they struggle in parenting. And like even the fitness thing, like you got a lot going on. But I think fitness is so essential for mental health. So how do you prioritize what you're doing like now? Is there...
Oh, I mean, I don't do it perfectly most days. But I like quotes a lot. And one of my favorite quotes is, how you spend your day is how you spend your life.
Yeah.
And that idea of having things in your everyday life that are important to you.
Yeah.
Because that's what you are. Like if you teach every day, you're a teacher. Like it's the obvious, what you spend your time doing is what you become. And so I love sports, and to try to keep sports in my life, I coached track for 12 years. I don't coach anymore because that's just a bit too much on my plate. But I still compete.
Yeah.
I have a track meet I go to once a year that kind of gives me a goal to keep training. So lifting weights. I was a hammer thrower.
Yeah.
So I make sure that I get out and do some throwing just on my own time. It's an individual sport. I play some rec sports. But I just like to have some sort of sport, whether it's a competition or a rec sport with friends, to just stay active.
Yeah.
This year I swam across the lake. That was just something new. So I'll just pick a challenge. I mean, like, this is something I want to work towards. And then it forces you to train for it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of have that woven in so that I'm still keeping sports, which is important to me, as a part of my life. They're really, like, if you look at my calendar, there's not time for it. But I think you have to make time.
Yeah.
Or else what are we doing here?
Yeah. Especially since, like, it's a paradox, right? You have to put time in, and it's going to suck. But there's tons of research about, like, how it helps your brain. So that if you do put time in, the littler time you have is more effective. Mm-hmm. So, like, and there's so many people who are like, I don't have time for fitness. But if you don't make time for fitness, then the things you want to do otherwise are going to take more time.
Yeah. And you're going to do something.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to do something with your time. You're going to either spend more time working. But if you're just working, which could take up all your time, especially as an entrepreneur, that's a very, like, one-dimensional life. And I really value a full life and having a lot of things going on. And I think I work better when there's a lot of things. I think it's that also, what's the word for it? Where you, like, don't want to finish tasks. Like, tasks get boring. Like, a new task is so exciting and I can, like, hyper focus for hours.
Yeah.
But once that task is old, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So sometimes having other things I can flip towards, like if I go and do a workout, I'm a little bit more prone to finish that task.
Yeah.
That was so boring. Like, I can't just plow through work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if your brain's the same, but, like, an 8-hour workday doesn't work for me. I have like these spurts of, like, 3 hours where I can focus really well. And then there's really I'm just distracting people in the office if I'm there longer.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a lot done. No one else is getting stuff done. So it's understanding what times you work best. For me, it's like, I work well late at night.
Yeah.
And, like, before 2.
Yeah.
I can't work past 2. So just also being like, if I'm not going to work anyways, why not go to a class or play a sport? Because I think it's also, like, shedding some of those expectations of, well, you have to work to this time, or you have to be working during the day, or you shouldn't. Like, there's all these things that I think society tells us we should do. And then just having the liberty to be like, no, I'm not going to feel bad for only working 3 hours if this is my best 3 hours. I mean, I work more, way more than that. But taking that time that you need. Yeah. I tend to feel guilty for sometimes.
Yeah, I think the culture sort of, like, imposes that on us, with even starting with elementary school, or like that full school day.
Yeah.
You know, there's this uninterrupted block, or the 9 to 5 that is normal, which is, like, I think a lot of people with ADHD who struggle with that need to realize that you are paid for productivity, not for hours. And if you can find yourself an environment, or design yourself an environment where you're rewarded for your productivity and not just the numerical quantity of hours, you're way better off. Because some days your best 3 hours are all you need. And some days you might hyper focus for 12 hours. And you might want to, like, ride that wave when you can, instead of being like, oh, I'm at 8 hours, I got to stop.
Totally.
It's like, no, it's like your work should be flexible. And I think
and every person's going to be different. So the better you know yourself, the better you can manage your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that comes with, like, a lot of this self-care stuff too. Because like, you might not work well for a lot of hours if you're eating crap, or if you're not exercising. And so these things feed into each other.
What's your best rhythm for like work and health?
Let's say my best rhythm. I think like I take a slow breakfast. I wake up, eat breakfast, and then like after breakfast from like when things are optimal, and they're not lately, but from like 9:30 till about 2, I can have a pretty good chunk of work done.
Yeah.
And then I need a snack and I might need a nap, and then I can do a little bit more after that. And then like house stuff in the evening. I more often work out in the evenings than more-nings. Part of me wants to do it in the morning, but it sort of flexes, ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
How about more about this parenting thing, like how like kids can be incredibly disorienting, stressful, exciting, adorable. Like it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the experience of mothering with ADHD.
Oh, I mean, it's been a big learning curve. Like I think anyone stepping into parenting, there's a lot of learnings, and your kids teach you a lot of lessons. I have great kids. My kids are fun. They're pretty easy. But they've taught me a lot, as I mentioned before, in like slowing down.
Yeah.
And like listening to what they need. The rhythms were the hardest thing when I first had kids.
Yeah.
Because I am not someone that has a normal schedule.
Yeah.
I loved staying up late. Like most of my work was done really late at night. And kids they like a routine.
Yeah.
And I used to despise routine. Like I loved last minute things. I loved being spontaneous. And so that was probably when I first had kids, like the rudest awakening was like the kids have to go to bed. To have a healthy kid, they need a routine, go to bed, wake up, naps. And so that was a big adjustment. But also later I found it really helpful. As I mentioned, with like having a time to stop at work. So it was a tough lesson. Now I have, there's a benefit to it. But less about ADHD, just parenting in general is such a beautiful journey, getting to know these little humans. And they're so different. I think anyone with 2 kids knows they're like completely opposite. Like you get what you get. And they have so much to teach you. So it's just being present is another really big lesson. And that maybe comes back to ADHD, where I love progress. I love new projects, finishing things, and kids are a really long project. Like they take a long time to learn lessons and grow, and having to slow down and be present is something that I think is hard when you have a fast brain, but it's really beautiful if you can just take the time to like enjoy the stages, even though they're quick, but they take a long time. Like the days are long. Yeah. They grow up quick, but there's a lot of beauty in each day if you can just slow down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it to reflect on your own like lessons, right? You're talking about these slow to learn lessons. I think that speaks to the ADHD challenge of the routine, right? Like I'm the same way. I used to like stay up late doing all kinds of weird projects. And at a certain point, somehow I realized that wasn't really working for me. And I got better at regulating my habits and routines and like going to bed at a regular time. And I think like ADHD people are sort of adverse to authority, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, I don't want to do what you tell me. And if society or even yourself is telling you to do something, like there's like the little authoritarian in your brain that's like, you should go to bed. There's another party that's like, you can't tell me what to do. Yeah. Right. But when you finally do learn that lesson that has been like adults have probably been trying to instill in you since you were a child, oh my gosh, it works pretty good.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's coming up for you? Do you have any interesting projects on the go? Like, it sounds like you probably do.
Always so many projects. We're currently scaling the business. We got new distribution. So we're selling more product in like the Lower Mainland, Alberta, Manitoba, the island. So bringing on a lot of new customers like Choices, Whole Foods, getting some bigger listings. I have some new product lines coming out. Yeah. I got a new big certification for the brewery, hiring some people. So there's always something growing the business. It's that balance right now of trying to figure out how to scale really sustainably rather than doing everything really fast. What's the best way to bite things off in smaller chunks so I'm not just completely overwhelmed? Because I do have a tendency to like push for progress and then live at like the edge of my boundary. So just trying to like take things a little more sustainably is the big one. And then also make time for the kids. Like the kids are growing and making sure that they're in activities that they like and that each of them have like, they have their strengths and kind of fostering their brains and the way they work. My son's really into like engineering and building things. Like he's always drawing blueprints. And so we have him in some STEM classes so he can learn to code. And I think investing them in this stage of life, like the world's changing so fast. And I don't know how useful maybe university will be in the future, especially with AI. Like the world's going to be so different. And so right now I think it's when they're eager to learn and excited, like teaching those critical thinking skills and helping them work the best with their strengths is really, really important.
Are they like in public school or how to like, or do
they're in private school?
They're in private school.
Yeah. They like it. They've been in that school since they were kids. It's smaller class sizes and we like where they are. We just want them to enjoy learning and be in activities in schools where they're excited to learn, enjoying the activities that they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's genius, and like the tragedy of the modern education system for like certainly public school is like so many people with fast brains, ADHD, are harmed and let down because when we want to learn something, when we're excited and interested in something, learning is easy, fun, streamlined. But when it's like put in a funnel and shoved in you 6 hours a day, whether you like it or not, or understand it, or whether the teacher likes it or not, or understands it, it's like in this modern world, we got access to YouTube, Khan Academy. We could learn from the very best at whatever they do, who are the most enthusiastic and ready to explain it. Or we can go to a school where some like 22-year-old kid who's not that interested in history is handed a folder and told, this is the curriculum, go do it. It's not easy to learn from those people.
No, especially if your brain's not wired that way.
Yeah. So do you think your kids do they have any of your qualities, or
I don't think so.
Yeah.
My son is the most organized, practical person that I've ever met. Like I sometimes joke he could run the business better than me, but he's always like attention to detail, definitely has tendencies to be some sort of like engineer, probably on the spectrum a little bit. All the men in my family are engineers, so it comes by it honestly, but loves building, loves blueprints, loves mechanical things. And my daughter is super artsy. She also loves building things, but I'm excited to see what she creates and what avenue she takes that. But I haven't seen the like ADHD tendencies as much in them, but they're still young. So as they grow, I'm just committed to supporting however they learn best, the best I can support that. And whatever avenues they want to learn, making sure that they have the tools to do that. And whether they have ADHD tendencies or somewhere on the spectrum, they're going to want to have to learn how to deal with their brains, neurotypical, neurodiverse, doesn't matter. And so I think as a parent, just understanding what your kid needs, what they're interested in, and giving them all the tools that you can. And it doesn't really matter so much if they fit boxes or not. But the best thing anyone can do, especially people with fast brains, is just understanding how you work so that you can work better in the world. And that's where I think boxes sometimes do us a disservice. Because then once you're in a box, you're like, these things must apply. But if you can kind of untangle some of those and be like, I may be kind of in this box, but I might need something different than you or you. I think that's where things are a little trickier, but that's so important.
Yeah, that's one of the difficulties I've faced in like working with people with ADHD or doing the podcast is trying to tease that apart, because there's certain people who are like, this is what ADHD is, and sometimes it's not. It's like it's complicated. And even what ADHD is, there's some people, some doctors, scientists who are like, is a response to childhood trauma, or it's bad breathing habits, or it's all kinds of things. And it's sort of all these things and none of these things. And
Totally. I'm always interested in the research. Like, why do some of these tendencies come up, and why are they coming up more so now? Is it just because we're diagnosing them, or is how much nature, how much nurture kind of a thing?
Yeah.
And I don't know if we'll ever know these answers.
Yeah.
But I think just taking the tools, like the nice thing about all of this information, I find like now more than ever, there's information on like ADHD, and it seems like everyone has an ADHD diagnosis. But with that, the nice thing is all these people have hacks or tools, and some are going to work and some aren't, but then you can take the ones you need.
Yeah.
Some people meds work, some people time blocking works. And then it's like, you don't have to take all of them. You don't have to take any of them, but there's probably going to be some that work. So you just try them out and like fit your tool belt with the things that you need to make your life the most like happy and efficient.
Yeah.
Because other than that, there's not really a goal. Like as long as you're happy and productive, I think that's the most important.
Yeah. So what are let's make this practical. What are the best hacks and tips that you've learned in managing your own?
There's a couple. I definitely find that medication doesn't work as well for me. I think because I've learned how to work with my brain. If I take anything to help me focus more, I'll go too far and I'll focus a lot for days and I won't sleep. And then I have imbalances on the other side. So I find the time blocking really helps. Cutting off distractions, like cutting off notifications on my phone, because distractions are what kills me. Like I love a good distraction. So I turn off notifications on my phone. And then I have a time when I'm going to do that thing rather than the stimulus is telling me what I need.
Yeah.
I try to have blocked out times so I can stay on task. And then eliciting help with the things I'm not good at. Like it's okay to not be good at something, and we're not going to be good at everything. So hiring people for things, and just accepting there's some things that we might really want to be doing, but aren't practical. So just like cutting off, I guess it's cutting out things in my life that aren't serving me, and then also expectations that aren't serving me.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to do X, Y, Z. I'm trying to think of like an example. But like have an organized garage. Like there's some things that maybe just aren't important, but you think you have to do them. So just shedding that guilt.
Yeah.
Like this is what I'm going to get done. This is when I'm going to get it done. And the rest doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
How about for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of that resonates. I think managing my physiology is one of the most important things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm quite interested in breath work and like how
Mm-hmm.
breathing, like I don't like stop to do breath work very often, but I very regularly am checking in with my breathing to see that I'm breathing slowly. Because I find
So
if I can
important.
breathe those slow, deep diaphragmatic breaths, everything else works better. Caffeinating appropriately, not like I prefer green tea. I find like if I take coffee, I get kind of weird. I can't breathe as well. So coffee doesn't work as good for me, but green tea, it's got like also a bunch of things like
Polyphenols.
L-theanine and whatever that are supposed to be quite good for your brain.
Antioxidants. All that.
Yeah. And so that's good. Eating well. And yeah, the mindfulness, like just noticing, the thoughts and feelings that arise. Because sometimes you don't even notice that you're feeling guilty or ashamed of something right away. And so when you notice it, you can be like, oh, is that an appropriate response here? Like, am I doing this because once upon a time some teacher or parent said like, you should be this way and you're not? Or is it because you're actually a horrible person? Usually it's not that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. Be humble and open to changing if you are.
Totally.
But a lot of the time, you're not actually a horrible person. You're just, not meeting some expectation from society. So noticing those inner voices and feelings.
And counseling.
Yeah.
Love my counselor. It's really helpful just for learning more about me specifically and what I need.
Yeah. Any, tips for young entrepreneurs? Like you said, hiring for what you can't do.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing for an entrepreneur to like hire your first employee. I'm sure many employees get scary, but the first one's probably the hardest. How do you go about asking for help, especially in a professional context?
Oh, like with employees?
Like could be with like finding employees or like even just getting your business running. Like I'm sure there's some people that helped you with that even before they were employees?
Yeah. When you're starting out, I think due diligence is really important. Making sure that you like talk to someone in the industry and get the ins and the outs.
Yeah.
Because definitely with ADHD, you tend to be like, this is a great idea. I'm going to do it all. And there's a lot of blind spots that if you can like make those blind spots less unknown, the more knowns you have, the better. And yeah, having a clear plan. I know with ADHD sometimes the planning and organization is tricky, but if you can be organized, then you can pass that part off.
Yeah.
I find sometimes I'll just run around like a crazy person and get everything done. And when I know I need help with something, I'm like, this isn't in any condition for me to pass it off.
Yeah.
This is a mess. Like, but I can handle working in a mess. So getting a system together where like, this is hand offable.
Yeah.
This is something where I can. So I think breaking down the business into the different areas that you want to hand off and getting it organized so that it's easier to pass off. But
Yeah.
you kind of have to do that on your end first.
Yeah, that's another thing coming back to what's worked for ADHD for me is
Yeah.
like for years my kitchen was always a mess. A lot of time it's still
Yeah.
a mess. I'm pretty good at making a mess. But it's gotten much easier to clean as I've developed certain systems and rhythms
Totally.
that are just like you don't need to think about it. You don't need to be creative every time you do this task. You can just get on the train tracks and go.
Totally.
And my buddy showed me an app called Goblin Tools, I think. But you
Oh.
could use probably ChatGPT for this.
Yeah.
If you're having a hard time like organizing and breaking down a task you're
Oh,
doing,
yeah.
that's one of the best things for AI. Get on there and be like, here's the task I want to do. Here's sort of what I'm doing, but I need to do it better. And it's amazing how, sometimes what you think is one task is like 15 tasks in disguise.
AI is a lifesaver. I know a lot of people aren't super on board with AI. I use it daily for content, for just like fleshing out an idea. Like I'll just put in on my like verbal diarrhea and be like, make this concise.
Yeah.
And I'll just line it out with bullet points. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But there's like just translating kind of the mess and the chaos
Yeah.
into something that's a bit more streamlined. AI is beautiful for that. Just, or like finish the sentence, or just things that the loose ends,
Yeah.
I find with ADD, it can help tie some of those up.
Yeah. A little virtual collaborator.
Oh yeah.
So if people are
Big
looking
fan.
for MotherLove kombucha products, where can they find them?
There's a map on our website, depending
Okay.
on where you are, in lots of places in the Okanagan, also more throughout Western Canada. You can find a location, or if you're in Kelowna, visit the Kombucha Bar.
Okay. And what's the website?
MotherLoveFerments.com.
Okay.
At MotherLove Kombucha on Instagram.
Okay. Any final words or tips or anything you want to share with the world?
I think we covered a lot.
I think so too.
Yeah, just know yourself, know your brain, and don't be afraid to get rid of some stuff you don't need.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for meeting with me today, Rochelle. I think it's been a great conversation.
Thanks, Liam. Is a wrap.
Good. 47 minutes.
Nice. Did you cover all